The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up.
Well, go to Bolt fam, Chargers, fans of America. It's another day closer to the 2024 season, another day closer to Jim Harbaugh leading the charge in SoFi Stadium. Of course, just getting the schedule the other day. Very exciting news dropping about OTAs. We've got training camp around the corner. The season feels like, at least in the offseason, is in full flux. Chargers fans are starting to feel the hype and excitement revolving around the potential of what this new regime could look like in the new season. What's going on, everybody? It's the director. Today I've been handed the awesome and challenging task of covering a rather interesting topic for the Chargers in 2024 for the offseason this year, in what could possibly be a very wild offseason trade for the Bolts. All right, and before everybody tunes out and says, "Oh, director, we've already danced this dance. We talked about trades. Things went this way and that way, before the trade or before the NFL draft." Let me just be here to tell you guys that trades are certainly still on the table. You're going to see at least a few pretty high-profile trades here in the next couple of weeks. And it's because of a very important date coming up for the NFL here in just a handful of days. And that date is June 1st. It's going to be a couple of different opportunities revolving around that date coming up. And this is because a lot of contracts and how they're paid out via trades or cuts are changed after the June 1st date. How much money you owe this season versus next season. And generally a lot of teams, to save cap, like to make a post-June 1st designated cut or trade in order to get more money on the books for this season. We see this every year, especially after a strong draft where teams have loaded up on different positions with quality players, introducing competition for veterans that maybe wasn't there before. And every season we see a couple of surprising shocks and trades. I think the Chargers, like every other team in the NFL, could be involved in another trade before the season kicks off. And I think in particular, you look at teams like the Chargers and say to yourself, we don't really know what this team is yet. Why would we invest more in a certain spot, a certain position? Well, it's because we need to be able to create the Chargers in the new image that Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, and Jesse Minter want to create. And sure, the likeliness of a Chargers trade at this point, in my opinion, could be rather low. But there's a couple other scenarios where I believe we may be in play for one or two things here or there. And one of the first things I wanted to cover in this wild off-season trades video is going to be in-house trades. The Chargers trading away talent from the roster that maybe doesn't make the cut. Again, like I said, with a lot of other teams after June 1st, we see a lot of cuts, we see a lot of trades. And it's because there's a lot of competition introduced into the position, right? And I think one of the positions that was talked about a lot, and let me go ahead and open this first wild trade, because again, these are wild trade, off-season trade ideas, right? The first one I do want to open up with is one that we did hear a lot about in the offseason, and one that I think the Flames have been tempered down quite a bit because of what happened next, and that's going to be Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Okay, they officially need to be on this list, however unlikely I believe the trade to go down. They have some circumstances revolving around not just their contracts but their position that could force the Chargers, or I should say tempt the Chargers to move around guys a little bit. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen. There's been a lot of talk about Bud Dupree coming into the fold because of the promises made of him getting to play with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. But in the end, it is a pretty oversaturated position, right? You got Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, the breakout rookie from last season, and Tuli Tuipulotu, as well as now Bud Dupree. 4 quality edge rushers, which is something not a lot of teams can boast about in the NFL. Do the Chargers really need all 4? Maybe not. And maybe that could tempt the Chargers to move away from a Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa that does carry a significant cap number next to their name, as well as potential of being cut anyway by Joey Bosa, maybe a Khalil Mack not getting the extension after this season. There's a lot of different scenarios in which the Chargers cutting bait now could benefit a little bit instead of nothing. You know what I mean? And some people may argue that, director, they took pay cuts. The contract was moved around. We do see stuff like that in the NFL in regards and revolving around players that eventually are traded. Sometimes it's to help their trade value a little bit when entering the market. Some teams, maybe view a player a little too expensive, maybe a little bit old. A lot of different factors revolving around some players. Sometimes when you restructure a contract, it makes it more tempting for another team to bite and give you the returns that you're looking for. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. But we have to go ahead and put their names on this list because it would be a wild thing to go down. And it would be one that when you take a look at the roster, you take a look at the strengths and weaknesses, maybe using resources that were taken by Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa and putting it into other positions like, offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, might make a little bit more sense there. But in the end, I think Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa remain bolts for the 2024 season. And we see one of the best pass rushing units in the NFL. I got 10 guys on this list, by the way. I should say 10 topics I do want to talk about in this one. At number 9, another in-house guy that I think the Chargers could potentially move away from is Josh Palmer. And this would be a really wild offseason trade because, honestly, Josh Palmer, at the top of the offseason, you would probably say this is wide receiver 1 for the Chargers. This guy, when stepping in for an injured Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, didn't do half bad. And maybe one of the last guys that Justin Herbert has a pretty good repertoire with on the team. Why would the Chargers, in any reality, move away from number 5? Well, it's for a lot of the same reasons I listed with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Oversaturation at the position. Wide receiver all of a sudden went from we got nobody, what are we going to do, to getting drafted up the wazoo. I think you can have 6 players at that position, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. At this point, somebody's getting cut. Somebody's going to enter the practice squad, right? You got DJ Chark, who just entered the fold. You got 3 draftees in Ladd McConkey, Brendan Rice, and Cornelius Johnson. At this present time, it feels like Cornelius Johnson has the least, odds to make the roster just because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. What if the Chargers surprise us with a trade of Josh Palmer in order to kind of wiggle things in there? Maybe he doesn't quite fit what they're looking for. Maybe he wants, or the Chargers want to favor the speedier guys a little bit more on the offense that might have a bit more running involved. There's a lot of different factors in play when talking about moving around the Chargers wide receivers in order to make space for the new guys coming in. That forms the new Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense. And Josh Palmer, as much as I hate to say it, could be one of those guys who gets pushed out because of oversaturation. Jim Harbaugh may be really, really in love with Cornelius Johnson after their time together in Michigan, as well as some of the upside that he provides in depth and run blocking. It might be something that he says, hey, dude, we want to make sure Ladd is the guy. Maybe we don't need the resources here. Maybe Josh Palmer isn't quite fitting the vision of what we want on the offense. Let's go ahead and move him. If the Chargers were to move, let's say, the pass trades like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, you would probably see some pretty significant returns via compensation on picks. Josh Palmer would be one of those guys that you probably see something a little bit less, 5th, 6th round pick, with some upside for the team that's inquiring him. Now, at number 8, another wide receiver we're going to lump into this category is Quinton Johnston. And this is one that, honestly, we're seeing a little bit more and more recently. First-round wide receiver enters the fold with a new team and just doesn't quite click. Quinton Johnston, to me, is the kind of dude that could pop off at it. You see so many receivers that kind of plummet their rookie season and really find themselves in their second and third year. I'm in no way, shape, or form ready to give up on QJ. I think the guy has all the potential in the world to be the kind of wide receiver the Chargers envisioned when drafting him at pick number 21 just last year. That being said, there's a lot of teams and a lot of examples in the NFL where a wide receiver enters the squad, enters the fold, doesn't quite fit, doesn't quite gel, complications arise, and they do get traded inside that rookie contract. Could Quinton Johnston for a lot of the same reasons that we listed Josh Palmer about. Be the next guy that gets traded inside of his rookie deal, because just there's not a lot we can do with, in coaching, in massaging some of the weaknesses that he brings to the position, mainly his catching. His hands have not been a factor that gets Chargers fans excited. It's been something that, even in a clip a couple of days ago that we saw Justin Herbert tossing the ball to Quinton Johnston, there was a bit of bobble there. And it makes me feel like if the Chargers aren't confident in their ability to nip that in the bud, maybe it would be one of those situations, rare situations, that a team would move on from a first-round wide receiver inside the first 3 years of his deal. So keep those guys in mind. Those are going to be my in-house trades for the Chargers, in which they could find some dramatic move that shocks us all. And honestly, at this point, I think I'm leaving everything on the table with all the craziness that we've seen in the past couple of seasons. I'm looking in the chat right now. You guys want to know about Justin Jefferson. Before we move into the new players, let me go ahead and lump his name in there, because I did not include him simply due to the fact that he's going to be pretty massively expensive. And the chances the Chargers trade for him, I don't know how realistic it would be. But it is something that you can throw on the table. If the Chargers can find a way to free up the money and get Justin Jefferson on this squad and be that true number one guy for Justin Herbert, then I'm all about it. Me personally, I'm so high on Ladd McConkey. I think that he's going to have a great career with Justin Herbert, and I want to see how that sizzles in 2024 first. But Justin Jefferson, outside of the money, the trade compensation would be in the realm of first, maybe multiple first-round picks. However you guys slice it, he's not going to be cheap. If you guys are cool with that, let me know in the comment section and in the chat what you guys think about that. Would you be willing to trade the farm for Justin Jefferson, including money and paying him in this first year? Let me know. I think I could see a world where that would definitely make sense. But for me, we're going to put him as an honorable mention here. Now we're going to start flying through some of the names on this list, guys. At number 7, I got Budda Baker. All right, this is where things get interesting, right? This is where the fun begins. Who could the Chargers bring in via trade to get this team to a spot where Chargers fans are like, ooh, man, we're licking our chops, getting ready to see how they get to work with this team. Budda Baker's definitely one of those dudes that has had a lot of trade rumors swirling around his name. I would say for the most part, almost every guy on this list has that factor revolving around him. There's been talk, right? There's been chatter. There's been whispers as to whether or not they're going to be staying with their current squad, and Budda Baker has been part of that chat for several months now. Is he going to be that dude for them? I think a big reason for that was a bit of a dip in his production last season. Let me actually go. I have all these guys' stats listed out here. Didn't log a sack, didn't log an interception, played 12 out of the 17 games. Definitely not his strongest year, and could push the Cardinals to want to move on from him. I think he's in his rookie contract, or not in his last year of his contract. I stand corrected there. Not a bad time to get out of a deal like that. I see reason for it. I see reason why the Cardinals would want to move on. Why would the Chargers want to move in on Budda Baker, however, if we already have solid safeties in Alohi Gilman and Derwin James? Well, a topic came up a couple of days ago that did make me raise an eyebrow in terms of where Derwin James was lining up during OTAs. We saw him move in the slot, the X position, in the box. Derwin James is going to be your ultimate chess piece, moving around the field, making, offensive coordinator sweat a little bit. And when he was on the move, it listed a couple of guys still playing up top in his absence, and A.J. Finley and J.T. Woods, both of which I feel might have some hidden potential. But I can't help but think that if the Chargers were to go and get a guy at strong safety to move around with Derwin James and Alohi Gilman that plays that, hybrid, versatile role up top, it could make things pretty exciting, which you can throw a Budda Baker into the fold of a box safety and up high safety. He can move around a lot as well. And that ultimate versatility is what gets me excited. Now, I'll be honest, this is not the highest guy on the list for a reason. I think I'm much higher on the idea of Justin Simmons entering the fold as a free agent rather than going and trading assets for a Budda Baker. But hey, this is wild off-season trade ideas, and I think Budda Baker with Derwin James and Alohi Gilman would make a very mean and intimidating secondary for any offense to have to go up against. Certainly with his potential as a pass rusher, too. Him and Derwin James, woo! Got to watch out if your name is Patrick Mahomes. And you guys are right there with me. I see you in the comment section. Instead of trading for Buddha, why not just sign Justin Simmons? It would make more sense. Yes, absolutely, 100% with you there. But hey, you never know what the situation may be with Simmons. Maybe the dude is contemplating retirement. Maybe the dude, found a love in bacon muffins in a new shop he opened up in Denver, and that's where his passions now lie. Maybe Buddha could be that, plan B option, the plan B Buddha Baker to make that dream come true. Next at number 6, a name that in years past would make Chargers fans clap and, get that meme going on the guy coming from behind the tree, just like, yeah, let's make this happen. Maybe today, not so much, but it's something that we should definitely mention. James Bradberry, the once famous cornerback. What was it? The Giants, the Panthers, most recently the Philadelphia Eagles. Dude was kind of on fire. He was on a trajectory. That has since then changed a lot. James Bradberry has not been the same player the last couple of years, and the Eagles have gone out and drafted guys for their secondary recently that could certainly push him out. Most notably, Cooper DeJean, who's going to be playing on the outside for them. If I do have that correct, I could be mistaken. Either way, James Bradberry could be a guy on the outs, and that could result in a very light trade to a new team in terms of helping him out, change of scenery, maybe bumps up his value again. And the Chargers are a kind of team that, hey, man, I've seen it before. It could happen again. You guys remember a man by the name of Casey Hayward had a big dip in production in Green Bay, gets traded or picked up by the Chargers, and all of a sudden this fresh defense, this fresh environment, he was resurrected, and he had a fantastic few seasons with the Chargers. Maybe a James Bradberry could offer a similar narrative, but let me be clear, this would be taking a shot. All right, this isn't the same James Bradberry. This dude isn't the guy that was going out there helping people, win Super Bowls. This is a different dude. And despite that, I still, the corner position is a pretty big need for the Chargers. I still would be willing to take some shots here and there. Sounds like the Chargers are too, right? We went out, we got Christian Fulton. It's kind of having a similar trajectory, right? We got to see if a new scenery kind of helps him out. We want 2 guys out there, maybe. But James Bradberry does offer some, veteran options out there that could be valuable to the Chargers. So we're going to go ahead and throw his name down. It'll be a very light trade, but hey, who knows, man? Who knows? I see in the comment section, what about Pat Surtain? Pat Surtain. I feel like Pat Surtain would be a huge, obvious number 1. Let's go get him, man. I don't care what it costs kind of thing for me on this list. However, I feel like that trade was way more possible when the Bolts were picking at number 5. There were quarterbacks on the board. The desperate Broncos were talking about moving on from valuable assets like Pat Surtain. And nowadays, I think it would be much more difficult to acquire a Pat Surtain if you're a division rival. For those reasons, I'll say maybe if it's a shot, I'd be super hyped on it, but it just feels like it would cost way too much now that the Chargers aren't at number 5 any longer. Let's move up to number 5 on this list while we're at it, though. Nice segue, director. Pat on the back, baby. Caleb Farley. Again, another name on this list with a couple of years ago. You guys would be like, hey. This is a dude, right? First round pick. Chargers fans were talking about him the year he was drafted as a potential dude to us. It is a guy that, honestly, I've been rooting for, but it just hasn't panned out for the man. He's injury-plagued to start his career, right? It's not been pretty for the guy. He's not been able to stay on the field, but he does carry a lot of traits that you would love to see on a team. Any football team would be excited to see him on their team just based on his physical attributes, right? By the way, just to be clear, didn't play last year. The year before he played 10 games, and the year before that just 4 games. He's not even logged an interception in his NFL career, okay? Going into his 4th season. It's pretty bad. And like the Eagles, the Titans have gone out and they've addressed secondary a bit in the offseason. Could it push Caleb Farley out? Are they done? Is there a chance of getting out of this? I think at this point they have to consider it. right? Caleb Farley may end up being a bust, and maybe it's in his best interest to go to a new place, new scenery, and try and rebuild his career. Him and what was the other guy out of Detroit? What was his name? That's going to drive me crazy. He ended up going to the Falcons. These are guys that could certainly use a reset button on their careers, right? Jeff Okudah. They could definitely use a reset button to start their careers. And hopefully a new scenery could help a guy like Caleb Farley. And ultimately, the Chargers are going to be looking for a guy with his physical characteristics. What is he, like 6'1", 6'2"? 6'2". He's stupid fast. He was very good coming into the NFL draft, but just hasn't been able to translate it in terms of availability. If the Chargers want to take a shot on a guy like that, more power to him, right? And again, a lot of these guys, you're talking mid-round, late-round picks. Not much in terms of compensation. He, in this situation, would be coming in a rookie contract too. So Caleb Farley, to me, is a guy that I do have my eye on as a guy that, hey, if the Chargers, they want to go full Titans, right, with Christian Fulton, let's bring in Caleb Farley too and see what happens. In the chat, I'm seeing, what about Talona Hufanga? What about Tyrann Mathieu? Both those guys certainly in consideration as well. I think Tyrann Mathieu would be a lot harder to swing. He just got a crazy extension, right? Something into like his late 30s. With the New Orleans Saints. Maybe that one would be a little bit harder to swing. Hufanga, certainly a rising star for them, but hey, I mean, these are wild off-season trades, right? Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be listed as Kenyon Green, and this is one I like a lot, actually. When you're talking about taking a shot, right, it's a wild trade. Kenyon Green's kind of the dude that I feel fits the narrative of what would be a success in a Jim Harbaugh offense and unit and team. Last season, I think he was hurt, right? Didn't see much of the field. The season before that, a bit of an underwhelming rookie debut. And at this time, the Houston Texans are building something, right? And they've found a lot of success despite the absence of Kenyon Green the past couple of years. They're on the up and up. That could influence the Texans to let Kenyon Green go and try and find Kenyon greener pastures, where the grass is Kenyon greener. And that to me is the kind of trade where I feel like, okay, we can probably work with this. Kenyon Green, first rounder, right? A lot of people had a first round grade on him for a lot of good reasons. A lot of awesome upside for his translation into the NFL as a guard. Just hasn't been able to put it together. You bring him into the Chargers organization where we got a Ben Herbert conditioning, program that's top tier. You got Jim Harbaugh, who's the offensive line whisperer. You can probably get Kenyon Green at a pretty good discount at this point. I like the risk reward in this particular trade. It feels like, hey, if there's a guy destined to succeed with Jim Harbaugh, after starting off a little bit rocky in their career, it could be Kenyon Green, who you could probably slot in there with, Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins in that competition. By no means would he be, a set and forget starter. He would have to earn that. But I like his upside a lot, and I think, as excited as I was to see him come in to the NFL, I'd be even as excited to see him get a shot with the Chargers after maybe not being the best fit for the Houston Texans in the last couple of seasons. So I like that. At number 3, a dude that honestly, the moment I saw his name pop up on the trade rumors list, right? There's lists out there kind of going over who's swirling around, the back end of talks for NFL teams. As soon as I saw his name pop up, I was like, yeah, I would love the Chargers to move in on this. This is Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen, defensive lineman, Washington Commanders. This dude's awesome. Let me pull up his stats here real quick. I thought the man has been very solid. I would say very stable and solid for his career with Washington. Sure, he's getting up there, getting older. I think it's his age 30 season. But the dude's been nothing but pretty consistent, right? 5.5 sacks last year, 7.5 the year before, 9 the year before. Slowly trickling in with 2. The dude's a nice threat from the interior and does offer some pretty nice. I think if I remember reading correctly, he's not a bad run stopper either. The dude's pretty versatile, really nice on the line, and the Chargers need to start building something on that line again in terms of the interior. I like it a lot. Yeah, 30 is a bit older, but you can get a solid 3 or 4 seasons out of Jonathan Allen, in which it makes me feel like a trade would be very worth it at this point. It's one of those dudes that, again, competition at the position's gonna create some opportunities for Washington to get something out of a Jonathan Allen now, rather than, not using him to his full potential. And the Chargers just so happen to be a team where defensive tackle still sort of remains a need on the roster. So Jonathan Allen, to me, I like him a lot. He's been very solid for Washington. He's not been this huge, best, top 5, top 10 defensive tackle in the league, maybe at times, especially in 2021. But he's a solid enough guy that I think that you throw him into a Charger system, he would definitely thrive, especially when you talk about the kind of, craziness that they're planning with Bosa, Mack, Tooley, Fox, Dupree. You throw Jonathan Allen into that mix. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're trying to do, and it's a countdown of disaster for Patrick Mahomes at this point. All right. Back to the chat, says Trey Pipkins and a draft pick for Devontae Adams or DB from Seattle. You talk about Trey Brown. I almost put him on this list too. I like that. I actually do like that quite a bit. As for Devontae Adams, again, inter-division trades are really hard to swing. I think I just read about Devontae Adams stating that he was going to stay and stick it out with the Raiders. And I would have to imagine if he is moved, it would probably be to the New York Jets to reunite with Aaron Rodgers. But hey, wild off-season trade ideas, right? I think all of us are kind of looking for that wide receiver one. That's a great transition. Hey, is it Isaac? Good transition. Good segue here. Number 2, we're going to talk about that number 1 wide receiver potentially for the Chargers. And it's one that I've actually talked about a couple of times. It's a name that's been rumored, a couple of names that's been rumored a lot this offseason. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Both of these guys have been heavily rumored as trade targets, or I should say guys in the trade block for the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, and the reason that they're this high on the list for me is because of the potential that they bring in this new system. The Chargers are going to be implementing more of a run balance offense with Greg Roman, Justin Herbert losing Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. There's a bit of a vacancy there for a true number 1 wide receiver. I think it could be filled rather easily with Ladd McConkey, right? Should be pretty easy for him to get open. Justin Herbert's going to find a lot of success with him. But I think a guy for me, at least, that brings in a lot of confidence of immediate success is Deebo Samuel. You take a look at what Deebo does for the Niners. You see the kind of offense that he's in. You see the kind of running attack that they've introduced, the kind of philosophies that they have on offense. Deebo Samuel, to me, is one of the most exciting additions you can make this offseason if you are the Chargers. I love the idea of his versatility, which is something the Chargers are going to be heavily pushing this offseason, or this upcoming season. I love the idea of his physicality. I love the idea of what he offers in RPOs and play action. Like, he's just the ultimate weapon there. Him and Ladd McConkey would be a great duo. It's very similar to what you would see in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So if you're going to make a big trade at wide receiver, let's say you mix it in, right? You pair it in with some of the other trades that we were talking about before. Maybe the Chargers do shockingly trade away a Josh Palmer. They shockingly trade away a Quinton Johnston. Things are moving. The old is out. The new is in. Deebo could slide in. Wide receiver 1, Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 2. You got potential in the depth, with Brendan Rice and company. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm feeling kind of excited. You know what I mean? I'm feeling excited now. I feel like Ladd McConkey, you guys know, if you watch my YouTube channel, you would have seen me blab nonstop about Ladd McConkey months before the draft. He was my favorite, wide receiver in the late first round, right? He was my dude. But you bring Deebo Samuel, the thought of Deebo Samuel on this team is enough for me to be like, yeah, I would move in on that. I definitely would. It would be a huge move for this team and a huge boost to what they're trying to do in 2024. You want to introduce this new offense that's got a lot of running. It's got a lot of, philosophies in terms of blocking and such and such. Deebo Samuel is a great name to add to your locker room in order to make that happen. I did want to lump in Brandon Ayuk to that as well, though, because Ayuk would be very exciting to think about with Ladd McConkey, right? The Chargers have been this team that lacks speed for a long time, haven't been that deep threat kind of team since we had, funny enough, Guyton and Ty Johnson together in his rookie season. Why would we not go back to that when we're about to implement a new running attack, right? If the Chargers are going to start running the ball a lot more and setting up play action, let's get some dudes with speed on the field. Ayuk is one of those dudes, man. He's quick. He's mean. He's got great route running. Again, a lot of similarities to Ladd McConkey, funny enough. So I think those two would be awesome together. Between the two, I like Debo a little bit more, but either one of them I wouldn't mind moving in on if the price was right? Running system, let's run the hell out of the ball. I think Debo makes a lot of sense at wide receiver in those regards. Back to the chat. You guys say, what about DJ Reed from the Jets? He would be a decent guy. I mean, he's been pretty serviceable in the slot, right? Certainly a guy or a position the Chargers need to get right. We got some options, but we need to get slot cornerback right. Go get Justin Jefferson. We talked about that. I would certainly think, like a lot of teams, be willing to trade the farm for him. And what about Dameon Pierce? Pierce is interesting. I've heard his name talked about a lot with Chargers fans. Ultimately, right now, running back is a bit congested, right, with the Baltimore guys and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. We just got guys. I promise you, if you're looking for like excitement like Dameon Pierce brought the Texans a few years back, I promise you, the first time you guys see Kamani Vidal, you're going to be excited about what he brings in terms of his style of running. He's going to fit this offense beautifully. I want to see him thrive a little bit on this team too. He's a great value pick for the Chargers this year. To close this video out at number one, the number one trade target for me in this wild Chargers offseason trades idea video. Without a doubt, bottom line, circle his name, bold it, underline it, scream it to the heavens in the prayer circle, trying to get him on the team. For me, is Marshon Lattimore. And again, this list consists of a lot of guys that we've heard a lot of trade rumors around, that we've heard a lot of talks and rumblings of in regards of. Marshon Lattimore, to me, is one of those guys where I'm like, hey, if he's out there and the Saints, who've been hemorrhaging money for years and years and years now, are looking to move him, I need the Chargers to be in talks. I need the Chargers to be involved here, because the Bolts cornerback right now is definitely one of those biggest needs still on the team, right? We brought in some dudes, right? Cam Hart has a lot of potential. Tariq still has a lot of slot potential. We've brought in, free agent Christian Fulton, some potential. But ultimately, outside of Asante Samuel Jr., I don't know anything, right? I don't know anything. Like, how are these other guys going to perform? I mean, Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard, I kind of know, but Jasir maybe a good slot, Dean maybe a good outside, but I need a bona fide number one starting caliber cornerback now, and Marshon to me is still that dude. Marshon Lattimore has been the model of consistency. He's been maybe not as available as you would hope. Let's see. He did get hurt in 2022, missed a few games last year as well, but when he's on the field, there's no doubt in my mind that he's still starting caliber, starting potential. And what's his age at right now? He's still only 28 years old. You can get 3-4 more seasons out of him. And ultimately, he fits what I would hope the Chargers are trying to build in a Jesse Minter defense, right? You want that guy that's physical. You want that guy that's got the instincts, it's got the size, it's got a bit of the speed as well. I like Marshon Lattimore a lot as a cornerback in the NFL. I would like him even more as a cornerback on the Los Angeles Chargers. And the best part about this whole thing is the rumors revolving around Marshon and why he would potentially be a guy that you move is because of mainly money, which the Chargers do have. Chargers have all of a sudden a pretty decent amount of money after moving on from two of the most expensive wide receivers in the NFL. Why not put that into a position that does need a little bit of help? And I think corner is certainly one of those positions that would get me super excited. So Marshon Lattimore, again, one of those guys we've been hearing a lot of rumors about. I would certainly be in on that if the Saints really are willing to move in on him. Tanya Stacey for causing cornerback problems. I can attest to that, sir. I will drink to that, man. Chargers fans, bad taste in our mouth due to the J.C. Jackson fiasco of 2022. We're trying to move away from it, man. And I think Marshon would be a very good start to that. You guys in the comment section, I'm going to drink to that real quick. Y'all are studs in the chat, man. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys let me know also in the chat if there's any other names that you would be willing to go in on. I tried to mainly compose this list of players that have had some kind of rumor revolving around them, some kind of circumstances that would make sense. But, hey, some of the best trades that I've ever seen in the NFL came out of nowhere with no explanation and no reasoning behind it at all. What? DeAndre Hopkins is leaving? He's going to the Cardinals? Why? You know what I mean? Like, it's great. It's good. And I think the Chargers, while they're building something with the Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, new regime coming in to take rule of the team, If they want to use resources to grab players that they feel fit that vision, I'm about it. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Hit us up with a follow here if you want to see more of us here on Bleacher Report. We'll be back soon with more talks about the Chargers offseason and what some of the fun, exciting details include of the Jim Harbaugh OTAs offseason programs look like, and ultimately what the potential could look like for Jim and his first season back in the NFL in very many years. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again for joining me. This has been The Director, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Give me Marshawn Lattimore, baby. I'll be all about that.